16 publishers today. They are all represented by their logos here, so you can see them. And we are going to be sharing lots of awesome books. I'm going to just land on this slide, which is key. This is the PDF of all of the slides you will see today. It is case sensitive, so please jot this down now. It will be shared in the chat throughout the course of the book buzz. And you will have another opportunity, and there's another slide with it as a reminder. So you'll have plenty of opportunities throughout the buzz to jot this link down, but that will be how you can access the handout. And after we have the recording up on our ALMA YouTube page, I will send it around to all attendees so you can access the video. If you want to share that with colleagues, please feel free. And yeah, I think that's all the housekeeping. It's going to be very exciting. Lots of awesome books to hear about today. So I think we will get started. I'm Annie Mazes from Workman, and thank you so much for being here today, taking the time to talk with my wonderful colleagues and myself. We are part of ALMA, the Adult Library Marketing Association. We bring you book buzzes and author events. Hopefully you're familiar with our bite-sized book buzzes, which have been really fun to do. And today we have 16 publishers talking to you about upcoming titles. So without further ado, we are going to kick it off with Anthony Parisi from Tor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony from Tor. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today to hear about some of our upcoming new titles. So next slide. With that, I'll start with Tor's first major release of 2021, The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. The Echo Wife, which was just announced yesterday as a February library reads pick, is a page-turning, near-future domestic suspense novel from the best-selling author of Magic for Liars and Upright Women Wanted. In the novel, readers follow protagonist Evelyn Caldwell. Right away, you find out that Evelyn's husband, Nathan, has been having an affair, and the twist is he's having an affair with Evelyn Caldwell, or to be exact, with a genetically cloned replica of Evelyn. Martine is a clone made from Evelyn's award-winning research. Martine's patient and gentle and obedient. She's everything Evelyn swore she'd never be, and she's having an affair with Evelyn's husband. But after a morning that begins with a confrontation and ends with Nathan's body bleeding out on the kitchen floor, the two Caldwell wives will have to think fast before sharing everything, including a jail cell. The Echo Wife is a nonstop thrill ride of lies, betrayal, and identity. This book is perfect for readers of both science fiction and thrillers, as well as fans of Big Little Lies and Killing Eve. Next slide. Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. Everina Maxwell's debut is Ancillary Justice meets Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's a grand queer love story and an epic spacefaring adventure. The novel follows a disappointing minor royal and the emperor's least favorite grandchild, Prince Keem, as he's summoned before the emperor, commanded to renew the empire's bonds with its newest vassal planet. And in order to do so, he must marry Count Janin, the recent widower of another royal prince of the empire. But Janin suspects his late husband's death was no accident, and Prince Keem discovers Janin is a suspect himself. But broken bonds between the empire and its vassal planets leaves the entire empire vulnerable, so together the princes must prove that their union is strong while uncovering a possible conspiracy. This is a delightful, high-stakes space adventure with a slow burn romance that will leave readers swooning. Next slide. The Widow Queen by Elżbieta Czerynska. Elżbieta is an internationally best-selling author and sells more copies than George R.R. Martin and Stephen King in her home country of Poland. The Widow Queen is her first work translated into English, and we're so excited to have her here at Tor. The Widow Queen is the epic story of a Polish queen whose life and name were all but forgotten until now. Now more than ever, readers are eager to learn about the women behind great moments and movements in history that men have previously been credited with. The Widow Queen focuses on a real queen in Polish history whose life and name were all but forgotten, while her husband's father and sons are held up as great leaders and warriors until now. The Widow Queen brings this queen back to life and shines a light on her epic achievements and sweeping influence. This is a feminist historical fiction novel for fans of Philippa Gregory or Sidney Pike. Next slide. Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. This is the next brand new standalone novella in the New York Times bestselling Murderbot Diaries series from Martha Wells. For those unfamiliar, the Murderbot Diaries is action-packed, thoughtful science fiction about a self-hacking robot searching for the meaning of life. Author Annalee Newitz says it's one of the most humane portraits of a non-human they've ever read. Next slide. And my final title for you today is The Chosen and the Beautiful by Nige Vo. Nige Vo's debut novel reinvents the classic of the American canon, The Great Gatsby, as a coming-of-age story full of magic, mystery, and glittering excess, introducing herself as a major new literary voice. Jordan Baker grows up in the most rarefied circles of 1920s American society. She has money, education, and invitations to some of the most exclusive parties of the jazz age. She's also queer and Asian, a Vietnamese adoptee treated as an exotic attraction by her peers, while the most important doors remain closed to her. This is a gorgeous novel that tangles with race, sexuality, class, and magic that author Peter Jelly Clark says is genius, and that we should redo all the classics like this. So we can't get better praise than that. I encourage you to read an e-galley on NetGalley before it pubs on June 1st. Next slide. Thank you all for your time today. Here's how you can connect with us online. Follow us on social media, and you can always feel free to email me about any of the titles that I presented today. My email is right there on the screen. So thank you all very much.
Hi guys, so I am up. My name is Lynette. I am the library marketer for Harlequin. Next slide, please. So we've got a lot of amazing historical fiction coming out this season, and I'm going to speak on those. Next slide, please. We're starting with Woman with the Blue Star by Pam Jenoff. You may know Dr. Jenoff worked as a diplomat for the State Department. She handled Holocaust issues in Poland, and I say this because she returns to Poland for her latest novel. The book was inspired by true, incredible accounts of people who hid in the sewers beneath the streets of Europe in order to escape the Nazis. This is also a friendship story of two very different 18-year-olds. One is a wealthy Polish girl named Ella living with a stepmother that she sort of despises, not in the least because she's allied herself with German officers. The other is a girl named Sadie, whom Ella happens upon when she's out running errands and notices movement beneath a grate in the street. So the two become unlikely friends and eventually even allies, but as Poland becomes more dangerous, the strength of that friendship will be put to the ultimate test. Next slide, please. The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. The book's protagonist, Grace Bennett, has always dreamed of living and working in London, only to arrive and find that the only job she can get is as a bookshop assistant, which for most of us would be a dream. But Grace has grown up fending for herself and hasn't had much time for books. And then the Blitz begins, and as she's discovering the joy of reading, she's also realizing the powerful role of literature as her community is just being devastated by constant airstrikes. So there's a scene in the book, it's during an air raid where Grace finds herself in a tube station that's been designated as a bomb shelter. She's obviously terrified. She opens up a book to try to distract herself. Someone notices and begs her to read the book aloud, and you just see everyone in the station just desperately crowding in to listen as the bombs are going off above their heads. It's such a powerful scene. Even if you're not a historical fiction fan, I think this is a book for book lovers everywhere. Next slide, please. The Warsaw Orphan by Kelly Rimmer. So this book could easily be in the same universe as Pam Jenoff's, but they're very different stories. This is a coming of age novel about two teens. One, a Christian girl who lost her family when they're executed for their work in the resistance. She herself is now hiding in plain sight. The other is a boy from the Jewish ghetto who's squarely on a path of vengeance for the crimes committed against his people and his nation. Both of them refuse to sit back idly as Warsaw is just torn apart. Their paths end up crossing in both beautiful and tragic ways. What I love about this book is the nuances that the author portrays about these kids growing up in this terrible time. The helplessness in the face of injustices that to them are more black and white than the adults are sort of treating them, but also the ways they're forced to grow up in the midst of the horrors of Nazi occupation. Next slide, please. Radar Girl. So you've heard me talk about Sarah Ackerman. Her standalone novels all shed light on the World War II experience as set in Hawaii. Her latest is inspired by a real-life women's air raid defense known as Ward. What exactly was Ward? Well, one of the people Sarah interviewed in her research was the son of a late Ward officer, and he told her that whenever he asked his mother what she did, she'd say in this very sassy tone, "We brought the flyboys safely home." And that became the tagline of the book. So in Radar Girls, you'll find Hawaiian cowboys, a sweet romance, both comical and nail-biting moments when the Ward women are radioing with pilots. And of course, you'll meet a fierce sisterhood of women who are recruited to train and serve in secret immediately following the attack on Pearl Harbor. I love this book, don't miss it. Next slide, please. Okay, Secret Keeper of Jaipur. So Alka Joshi's first novel, The Henna Artist, was a Reese Witherspoon pick this year. It's going to be made into a movie by and starring Frida Pinto, which, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about, but I've been more excited for this follow-up novel because if you read The Henna Artist, I can 100% guarantee you the same favorite character that I did, and this time the novel is told from his point of view, except that it's now 1969, he's all grown up, and that's all I'll say about that. And finally, my last slide. So we've got the latest thriller from Mary Kubica, Local Women Missing, where the first chapter in itself could be a mini thriller. Films of Endearment, a memoir by a film critic who chronicles his coming of age by revisiting the 80s films he grew up watching with his mother. His Elemental is the renamed title of the book by Kate Bieberdorf, also known as Kate the Chemist. Seriously, Google her. She's a new, cooler Bill Nye. And speaking of cool, The Wildest Ride is an Own Voices romance by a really cool, young, up-and-coming romance writer, so check that one out. Last slide. And that is me. Definitely contact me if you have questions about any of these titles or are interested in a digital galley. Thanks for listening, guys.
Hi, this is Nicole DeGiacomo from Quirk Books. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm going to start off by talking about Whisper Down the Lane. This is the second Southern set horror novel by Clay McLeod Chapman, who debuted with the remaking back in the fall of 2019. This book shares some things in common with the remaking. It's inspired by a true crime tale and explores similar themes, including the horrors of parenting, the dark side of storytelling, and how the wrong story in the wrong hands can kick off a witch hunt. But the structure of this book is more traditional than the remaking. We have an 80s set narrative from the perspective of Sean, a little boy who is subtly influenced by the adults in his life to accuse his elementary school teachers of Satanism and witchcraft as the satanic panic sweeps across the country. But most of the book is told from the perspective of Richard, the man Sean grew up to be. Richard left town and changed his identity after the high-profile trial that followed his false accusations. Now, decades later, someone is leaving clues for him and recreating his lies at the elementary school where he works and where his stepchild attends, threatening both of their lives. This story calls to mind books like Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, which features a protagonist grappling with her involvement in the satanic panic of the 80s, decades later. And many readers will be familiar with the satanic panic phenomenon from major shows like True Detective or documentaries like Paradise Lost, and true crime fans, which is the core of this audience, will be familiar with the case that this book is based off of, which is the McMartin preschool trials, which actually kicked off the satanic panic of the 80s. This book is great for fans of true crime and also fans of horror. And as you can see, it already has received some great early reviews. Next slide, please. Just a quick heads up that the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires will be out in paperback in May, just ahead of summer reading for 2021. Thank you all for making this a library reads pick and for supporting it so strongly. It will have lots of great readers group content included. And as Becky Spratford said in her review and book list, this is a cheeky spot on pick for book clubs. Next slide. Next is The Ultimate Evil, The Search of for the Sons of Sam. Some of you might be familiar with this book already. It was written in 1987 by Maury Terry and is being reissued some close to 30 years later. This book came to our attention because a true crime documentarian named Josh Zeman reached out to us to tell us that he's working on a docuseries about the serial killer son of Sam. And the series is based on a book that had been out of print for over a decade, but he thought people would want to read it as soon as they were done with the series, especially the final episode, which points to a major revelation about the book. The book is The Ultimate Evil, originally published in 1987, and it's a true crime cult classic that's been out of print. And it's about journalist Maury Terry's decade-long investigation of the Son of Sam murders, in which he thought and chased all avenues that pointed to David Berkowitz not being the only person involved in these harsh crimes and the spree. So this book is coming out ahead of a docuseries and a podcast. And it will have a new introduction by Joshua Zeman. When Maury Terry died in 2015, he passed along all of his files based off of this, and this sent Josh Zeman down a rabbit hole and inspired this book. So there's going to be the docuseries and a podcast, which will be releasing in spring 2021, and hopefully will be announced soon. This is perfect for your true crime fans, and a lot of them might already be familiar with it and haven't been able to get their hands on it. Next up is It's Your Funeral. If you are familiar with Caitlin Doughty or The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, you will understand why planning your funeral ahead of time has been such a big deal in recent years, and why it's become so important. Kathy Benjamin, who has written about death and dying in the past, explores all the ways in which you can plan for your funeral, and not look at your death as an ultimate end, but as something that with anxiety, but to feel that it is something that is within your control, and leave your family to mourn and grieve without having to answer major questions.
Nicole,
Next.
that's your time.
Yep, thank you.
Reminder, all of these slides will be on the PDF.
Good morning, dear librarians. My name is Talia Scherer, and I'm the Senior Director of Library Marketing for Macmillan's Adult Publishers. Today, I have the pleasure of highlighting 6 forthcoming titles, so strap in. Here are all the various ways you may reach us, or to find out what we're up to, here's how to get our e-galleys. Next slide, please. We have 2 areas on our website dedicated specifically to YA and to genre favorites. Oh my God, a guest visit from my corgi. Hi. We have, every Monday at 4 p.m. And for a half hour, we talk about 4 titles, and once a month, an author joins us. Fun. Don't forget to join us on Thursday for the ALA Midwinter pregame, and then come back on Monday for Forget Your Troubles. Now let's talk books, y'all. Hello, Sorrowland by River Sullivan. This is a genre-bending work of Gothic fiction that wrestles with the tangled history of racism in America and the marginalization of society's undesirables. Vern, a hunted woman alone in the woods, gives birth to twins, but something is wrong with her own body. It's itching, it's stronger, it's not normal. To understand her body's metamorphosis, Vern must investigate the secluded religious compound from which she fled and the violent history of dehumanization, medical experimentation, and genocide that produced it. Read-alikes are Black Panther, Annihilation, Gideon the Ninth, and Lovecraft Country. Next slide, please. Of Women in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. This is a stunning On Voices debut novel that we bought in a 10-publisher auction. It is homegoing, but set in the Cuban and broader Latinx diaspora. This is a story of mothers and daughters that begins in the 19th century cigar factory and continues on to present-day Miami. And it's also the story of a beloved book that passes from one generation of women and their family to the next. At the heart of the novel is Jeanette, a troubled young woman and daughter of Cuban refugees, who makes the fateful choice to take in the daughter of a neighbor that was detained by ICE. Betrayed by her mother in the aftermath of the decision, Jeanette visits her grandmother in Cuba and begins piecing together her family's deepest mysteries. Next slide, please. Finley Donovan is Killing It by Elle Casamano. This is a YA award-winning author, Elle Casamano's adult debut and a February Library Reads pick. Thanks, y'all. Finley Donovan, a highly relatable single mother and struggling author, is mistaken for a hit woman. It happens to the best of us. when she and her editor are overheard discussing the plot for her next murder mystery. As she digs herself deeper and deeper with every turn of events, you can't help but want to befriend Finley with her dry and dark wit. This smart and dryly humorous novel feels as if a rom-com was a mystery and is great for readers of Lisa Lutz, Jennifer Cruzy, and Dorinda Jones. Next slide, please. Make-up Breakup by Lily Menon. A starred LJ said, packed with heart, humor, and multiple swoon-worthy moments, YA authors Menon's adult debut brings a welcome zing to the romance genre that's sure to have wide appeal. Lily Menon is the beloved best-selling YA author, Sandhya Menon, but decided to go by a new name here for her adult debut because, hello, sex scenes. Annika, a lifelong believer in true love and happily ever afters, clashes with a fellow app developer who stole her idea after summer fling in Las Vegas. After he moves into the office next to hers, of course, she starts to realize he might not be as shallow all his glitz and glamour indicates. This is for fans of The Kiss Quotient, The Hating Game, and The Wedding Date. Next slide, please. The Dating Dare by J.C. Lee. J.C. Lee, author of A Sweet Mess, the simply delicious story about a successful bakery owner and sexy food critic, brings us a new voice and brings us new own voices, chemistry-filled rom-com. Tara Park doesn't do relationships. That is until a friendly game of truth or dare leads to a seemingly uncomplicated mini dating arrangement with Seth, her best friend's new brother-in-law. The dates become more frequent and more heated, hubba hubba, and may even get them both a chance at happily ever after. This laugh out loud romance is perfect for fans of Evelyn Lozada and Helen Hong. And now for my last book. Thank you all for sticking around. We begin at the end by Christopher Whitaker. This book, this amazing book, already has 2-starred reviews. PW called it superb. And this novel is simultaneously a murder mystery, a love story, and a heartbreaking tragedy. Whitaker has upped his game and this emotionally charged page turner. So what is this book, you ask? It's a debut featuring badass 14-year-old Duchess Day Radley. 30 years ago, when Vincent King was a teenager, he was sent to prison. He has served his time and is returning to his hometown. But that hometown is the place where everything went wrong for him. It is where he murdered Duchess Day Radley's aunt. When Duchess looks for answers and revenge, she not only threatens her own family, but everyone close to her. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon, my friends. Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody. I am Golda from Norton. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You can find more Book Buzz videos from me on my new YouTube channel at bit.ly/YouTube Norton. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WWNortonLibrary. Next slide. So we have exciting news for The 5 Wounds by Kirsten Valdez-Quaid. It just got a starred review from Library Journal, and it was chosen as a July pick for Roxane Gay's new book club. Next slide. All the Water I've Seen Is Running by Elias Rodriguez is an Own Voices debut novel. The main character, Daniel, is a gay man living in New York, but when the girl he loved back in high school dies, he returns to Florida to mourn her and to possibly confront the man he thinks was responsible for her death. The novel looks at complexities of class, race, and sexuality. And we have this lovely quote from Justin Torres that you can see on the slide. He called the book a mesmerizing look at friendship and loss. Next slide. Mrs. March. I read this in one day, wondering if Mrs. March was losing her mind. Was she being drugged? Was her husband gaslighting her? Well, I'm not going to tell you, but I will say that the actress and producer, Elizabeth Moss, has already optioned this book for her production company, and she said that she was so captured by it that she knew she had to play Mrs. March. This is a slow burn psychological suspense novel with a killer ending. There's an ARC giveaway in my ALA Midwinter virtual booth and in the Publishers Weekly Grab a Galley feature, and I'll post the digital ARCs as soon as I get them. Next slide. Living Nations, Living Words is an anthology of First Peoples poetry edited by Joy Harjo. This is part of her Poet Laureate project and will have an interactive online component on the Library of Congress website. One of the ideas of the anthology is to show the breadth of Native poets writing today and celebrate their vital and unequivocal contributions to American poetry. And if you tune into the President's Program on Sunday at ALA Midwinter, You'll get to hear a conversation between Joy Harjo and her editor at Norton, Jill Bielowski. Next slide. We Need New Stories by Nasreen Malik is something that we all need right now. Malik examines the political myths that are used to deflect and discredit demands for social justice, like identity politics, the idea that there is a free speech crisis, the slippery slope argument, and cancel culture. She picks apart how these myths spread and how they are adopted across our media and popular culture and often used to sidetrack demands for change. A version of this book was published in the UK already to much praise, and now Malik has fully revised it for the US audience. Next slide. Unsettled Ground is the new novel by Claire Fuller, author of Our Endless Numbered Days, Swimming Lessons, and Bitter Orange. In this moving novel, Fuller builds a story of two marginalized people struggling with family secrets and poverty, and trying to figure out how to live on their own. Please check out my YouTube channel for a recording of an author panel that Claire was on last week, where she tells you about her inspiration for the book and gives you a peek into the writing process, and she reads a cliffhanger passage from the book. We have digital ARCs on NetGalley and Edelweiss, and there is also a giveaway in my ALA Midwinter booth. Next slide. Norton will start distributing mysterious press titles this May, and our first one is Basil's War by Stephen Hunter. This is an espionage thriller set during World War II with a deliciously debauched spy as the protagonist. Next slide. So you can find our digital ARCs on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and I usually have a print ARC giveaway in my library newsletter. Please come check out our booth at ALA Midwinter, and thank you so much to everyone for listening.
Hello. This is Annie Mazes back again. This is my contact information if you want to reach out. And my first book up is Hot Stew. It's the second book from the author of Lemn, which was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. This novel tells the story of an unlikely group of individuals in contemporary London, all in some way connected to this building in Soho, whose mysterious billionaire owner wants to convert it into fancy shops and apartments. It's very funny, smart, it has a fascinating cast of characters, and it cuts to the heart of some of the biggest issues faced today, questions of property and ownership, wealth and inheritance, gender and power. Next up, we have No Recipe, No Problem. Author Phyllis Good of Fix It and Forget It is here to help. No Recipe, No Problem offers tips, tricks, and inspiration for improvising in the kitchen. Each chapter offers practical kitchen and cooking advice, from an overview of essential tools and pantry items to keep on hand, to how to combine flavors and find good substitute ingredients. It's beautifully photographed throughout, and it'd be a perfect book to grab for any meal that you're preparing. Proof of Life. For the past 20 years, Daniel Levin has worked with governments and development institutions worldwide, as well as engaging in diplomacy and mediation efforts in war zones. So when he received a call from an acquaintance with an urgent cryptic request to meet in Paris and learned that a young man had gone missing in Syria, he was actually able to provide help in a way that no government, embassy, or intelligence agency would. In Proof of Life, Levin offers a fascinating study of how people use leverage to get what they want from one another. Proof of Life is a fast-paced thriller wrapped in a memoir. It is nonfiction, a must-read for anyone interested in power dynamics, international affairs, the Middle East, or our growing number of forever wars. Legends of the North Cascade, Jonathan Evison, library favorite, is back. David Cartwright has had enough. After 3 tours in Iraq, he has come home to Washington State only to find that he feels incapable of connecting to the people and the place that once defined him. Most days, his love for his 7-year-old daughter, Bella, is the only thing that keeps him going. And when tragedy strikes, Dave makes a dramatic decision. He will take Bella to live in a cave in the wilderness in the North Cascades. This is perfect for readers of Peter Heller's novels or Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone. Legends of the North Cascades, Jonathan Evison's return to sweeping multi-character narratives like his New York Times bestseller, West of Here. Nowhere Girl is fascinating. Wild, heart-wrenching, unexpectedly funny. This memoir is a coming of age memoir. It's inspiring. It's about running for freedom against the odds. To the young Cheryl Diamond, life felt like one big adventure, whether she was hurtling down the Himalayas in a rickety car or mingling with underworld fixers. What Diamond did not yet know was that she was born into a family of outlaws fleeing from the highest international law enforcement agencies, a family with secrets that would eventually catch up to all of them. Surviving would require her to escape, and to do so, Diamond would have to unlearn all the rules that she grew up with. Like the Glass Castle meets Catch Me If You Can, Nowhere Girl is an impossible to believe true story of self-discovery and triumph. The Temple House Vanishing. At Temple House, nothing is ever as it seems. Louisa is the new brilliant scholarship student, finding most of the other students at the all-girls Catholic boarding school icy and unfamiliar. She forms a fierce bond with the intense and compelling Victoria, an outlier and student provocateur. Their close bond is soon unsettled, however, by the young, charismatic art teacher, Mr. Lavelle, igniting tension and obsession in the cloistered world of the school. Then one day, Louisa and Mr. Lavelle disappear. Now, on the 25th anniversary, a journalist delves into the past to write a series of articles and uncover the truth. Told through alternating points of view, Rachel Donohue's debut novel lets the reader into hearts and minds of both Louisa and the determined reporter. This page-turner is perfect for fans of Elizabeth Thomas's Catherine House or Kate Elizabeth Russell's My Dark Vanessa. And finally, the case of the murderous Dr. Cream. In the span of 15 years, Dr. Thomas Neal Cream poisoned at least 10 women in the United States, Britain, and Canada, a death toll with almost no precedence at the time. Structured around Cream's London murder trial in 1891, when he was finally brought to justice, the case of the murderous Dr. Cream exposes the blind trust given to medical practitioners, as well as the flawed detection methods, bungled investigations, corrupt officials, and stifling morality of Victorian society that allowed Cream to prey on vulnerable and desperate women. Also, for fans of my favorite murder podcast, they discuss Dr. Cream in episode 199. That is it from me. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Carrie Henderson, and I'm joined by my colleague, Melissa Nicholas. We're happy to be here presenting some upcoming Hachette books. So without further ado, we'll move to the first title. Lisa Crossmith brings two people together for an emotionally charged weekend when Tally, the main character, discovers a man ready to jump off a bridge as she's driving home. As a therapist, she is trained for situations like this and convinces Emmett to come down from the ledge and join her for a cup of coffee. If you're familiar with Lisa Crossmith from her previous works like So We Can Glow, then you already know that she cuts straight to the bone. I don't want to give too much of this story away, so please make sure to pick it up when it publishes on February 2nd. Next slide, please. This next book has quickly become an in-house favorite at Hachette, and for very good reason. In her debut novel, titled Who is Maud Dixon, Alexandra Andrews details some of the most eccentric sides of the publishing world. We follow Florence as she works low-level publishing jobs with the dream of becoming a writer, in this unexpected, twisty psychological thriller that will keep you wondering how far you're willing to go to get the life you always wanted. This one's out on March 2nd. Thanks, next slide. Like Lisa Crossmith, Naima Coster is a masterful writer. Coster builds such a wonderful, rich world in this novel, making you take a sharp look at the multitude of ways that race affects relationships. I can go on about this one all day, so I'll leave you with a quote from Christine Baker Klein, author of Orphan Train. In deft, elegant prose, Naima Coster limns passions and betrayals and long-held grievances, the ties that bind and the ones that fray and tatter. This one is available on March 2nd. Next slide, please. Last year, Constance Sayers bewitched audience with her debut novel, A Witch in Time. In March, we will finally be satiated with her new novel, Ladies of the Secret Circus. Sayers does not disappoint, bringing us more of her historical details, family drama, and mystery in a story spanning from jazz-age Paris to modern-day America. Readers will be enchanted at every twist and turn. Passing it over to Melissa.
Hello, happy to see all you here. This is exciting. All these reads are available as digital galleys over at Edelweiss, so check those out, and we love to hear feedback and quotes. Now, North by Shakespeare. This is written by the acclaimed author of The Map Thief. This is a true story about a self-taught detective's quest to prove his theory about who's the actual author behind Shakespeare's works. Michael Blanding blends the twinning narratives of a rogue scholar, Dennis McCarthy, and Sir Thomas North, an Elizabethan courtier whom McCarthy believes to be the undiscovered source for Shakespeare's works. Was very nervous about saying courtier, but we got that out there. This is a playful choice for your history-loving patrons. Next slide, please. Noise, drawing on the latest findings in psychology and behavioral economics, and the same kind of diligent, insightful research that made Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow a groundbreaking New York Times bestseller. Noise explains how and why humans are so susceptible to noise and judgment, and what we can do to fix it. I'll share a blurb from Angela Duckworth, the author of Grit. Noise may be the most important book I've read in a decade, a genuinely new idea so exceedingly important you will immediately put it into practice, a masterpiece. Well, thank you, Angela. Next slide. Better Not Bitter is an inspirational memoir and a call to action from the New York Times bestselling author Yusef Salaam, one of the exonerated Central Park Five. Yusef shares how his own life experiences have solidified his sense of purpose and how we can turn our stories into tools for change. Yusef's story is an intimate perspective on one of the most famous and greatest failures of the American criminal justice system, which effectively turned an entire nation into a lynch mob. His story is still relevant today as it speaks to the urgent issues of racial injustice, police brutality, mass incarceration, and the bias that we are all still grappling with as a nation. Next slide. Next slide. Clint Smith is a writer, podcaster, speaker. Podcast is Pod Save the People, and a poet. His work first came to national attention with his viral TED Talks, The Danger of Silence and How to Raise a Black Son in America. How the Word is Passed is a deeply researched and devastatingly personal exploration of America's racial legacy, clearly illustrating how some of our country's most essential stories are hidden in plain places right in front of us, spots we drive by on the way to work, names of buildings and street signs, on the dollar bills we use to buy coffee. Through these stories, Clint Smith paints a richer and more holistic picture of America's relationship with its Black citizens, and earnestly reckons with the parts of our histories that have been suppressed, pushed aside, and blatantly ignored. This is one of the most anticipated books of this year. Next slide, please. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Annie and Caitlin and Margaret for arranging. Wishing you all a successful ALA midwinter too. Swing by and see us. Here's how to reach us, and thank you for listening. Over and out.
Hi, I'm Sharon Shell, and I'm with IPG, and I am thrilled to be bringing you some of our titles. Next slide, please. This first title is called Authentic, a memoir by the founder of Vans by Paul Van Doren, and it is one of our top shelf spring 2021 IPG lead titles coming out. So I'm excited to bring it to you. Paul Van Doren is the founder of Vans, the shoe company that's beloved by skateboarders, creatives, and fans everywhere for its laid-back, colorful SoCal vibe, and famous for its people-oriented company culture. So how did Van Doren, who started as a 16-year-old service boy at a local rubber factory, establish a family shoe business that evolved into a globally recognized brand with annual revenue of more than $4 billion? A blue-collar kid with no higher education and zero retail experience, Van Doren leveraged a knack for numbers, a genius for efficiency, and the know-how to make a great canvas tennis shoe into an all-American success story. Next slide. And here you can see that famous Sean Penn with his Vans in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Next slide. Our next title is called Thought Economics, and it's Conversations with the Remarkable People Shaping Our Century by Vikas, Shah. And you can see here some of the notable interviewees that are included in this book. Since 2007, entrepreneur and philanthropist Vikas Shah has been on a mission to interview the people shaping our century, including conversations with world leaders, Nobel Prize winners, business leaders, artists, and Olympians. He quizzes the minds that matter on the big questions that concern us all. In Thought Economics, Vikas presents some of the most emotive and insightful interviews to date. Next slide. Now, our next title, a captivating fiction title called People of Abandoned Character by Claire Whitfield, another top shelf IPG lead title and debut author. What would you do if you thought your husband was Jack the Ripper? London, 1888. Susanna rushes into a marriage to a young and wealthy surgeon. But then soon everything changes and his behavior becomes increasingly volatile and violent. He stays out all night, returning home bloodied and full of secrets. When the first woman is murdered in Whitechapel, Susanna's interest is piqued. But as she follows the reports of the ongoing hunt for the killer, her mind takes her down the darkest path imaginable. Every time Thomas stays out late, another victim is found dead. Is it coincidence? Or is her husband the man they call Jack the Ripper? Creepy. Next slide. Our next title is called Why Do You Look at Me and See a Girl? This is a strong feminist memoir about the complexities of identity, specific issues with both Asian and American cultures, and navigating multiple identities. It's by Anvi Huang, coming out in April. The story starts with her grandmother's prison visit and moves to a journey through the jungle carried out for a family reunion. Drawing strength from her, Huang completes her transformation in America from an international student to a free and naturalized being. As she sheds her adoration for the impeccable American logic, oscillates between languages and crosses oceans, she confronts the power play and biases, cultural inhibitors and prejudices that condition human behaviors, whether it be in Vietnam, America, or Thailand. This book is written with a hint of quiet humor. Why Do You Look at Me and See a Girl is an unflinching pursuit of questions about family, finding one's voice, home, and freedom. Next slide. And lastly, we have Open Skies, My Life as Afghanistan's First Female Pilot, another top shelf title for IPG, by Nilafar Rahmani. She was born in 1991 in Kabul, Afghanistan. And during the rise of the Taliban, her father took his young family to Pakistan, where they lived for 9 years as refugees. Then, after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the family returned to their home in Kabul. In 2010, for the first time, Afghanistan allowed women to join the military, and Nilafar entered Afghanistan's military academy. In 2013, she became Afghanistan's first female fixed-wing Air Force pilot, overcoming many, many obstacles. In 2014, the Taliban threatened Nilafar. The US State Department honored her with the International Women of Courage Award and sent her to the United States to fly with the US Navy's Blue Angels. But when she returned to Kabul, the danger to her and her family was increased significantly. So in 2015, she requested political asylum, and she was granted it in 2018. And yet she and her family are still in hiding in America. Next slide. And there you can see a photo with her. And next slide. Here you can figure out how to see all of the things I've shown you today, among some other things that are available. So I encourage you to check it out. And thank you so much for tuning in with me. And next slide. That's me and how you can contact me if you have any questions or need any additional information. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Chris Connolly with the HarperCollins Library Marketing Team. I'm going to get right to the titles. Next, please. First off is After Parties by Anthony Bayasno So. This is a short story collection, Own Voices story collection by Anthony, who was a rising star who we tragically lost at age 28 in December. But this explores the lives of Cambodian American life, as well as the life as a gay immigrant, and just all the intimate details that surround that life. These characters jump from the page. Every story is unforgettable. The opening story I love about a single mother, her 2 daughters who run a 24-hour donut shop, who witness a mysterious stranger who comes in every night. But every single page is just incredible, powerful. He was a rising literary star, and we're honored to post this Own Voices story in his legacy. So this is coming in August. Next slide, please. Okay, The Minister Primarily by John Oliver Killens. And I'm getting an echo. I don't know if everyone's muted, just noting it. So this is a long lost novel by one of the forefathers of the Black arts movement. This is a major literary event that follows a man, this adventurous man, Jimmy, who travels to this small fictitious country in West Africa where he just happens to be a dead ringer for their prime minister. And there's actually a plot to assassinate this prime minister. So Jimmy finds himself in kind of a switched identity scheme where he is going to travel to the United States posing as the minister for a meeting with Ronald Reagan. Hilarity, mishaps ensue. This is a very smart, brilliant novel that we're so happy that we could publish, following, again, the legacy of just an incredibly influential figure. So this is coming in July. That's the minister primarily. Next, please. Okay, Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. You'll know her from Family Trust, her debut novel, and this is a big, daring tech thriller with spycraft and also really smart takes on femininity in the tech industry. This follows a woman who is now the COO of a huge tech firm. But back in 2006, Julia was actually in Moscow studying computer science before she was enlisted to be a spy. So now she's living this double life, passing off tech secrets to Russia, while also being this forefront face for this tech company. But the requests from Russia are still coming in. They're increasingly daring. And little does she know that a kind of low-rung worker, Alice, who's a first-generation Chinese American, has noticed some weird tech hiccups and security hiccups, and she manages to trace it back to Julia. So this is a cat and mouse game, again, spycraft. It's very fast-paced, but also just a really interesting look at the tech industry, which Kathy just consistently does so incredibly well. This is a big book for us. It's coming in June. That's Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. And speaking of tech, An Ugly Truth by Shira Frankel and Cecilia Kong, two award-winning New York Times reporters who've been working on this story for a long time. This reads like a tech thriller, but this is a real-life investigation into Facebook's battle for domination. And everything we've heard about Facebook, you know, we've seen Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress, you know, he's giving these testimonies and everything is passed off as like a mistake. You know, it's a bug, not a feature. And what Shira and Cecilia are arguing is that Facebook at its core is doing exactly what it was designed to do, as Mark and Sheryl Sandberg have directed it to do. It's functioning as it should be, which is, you know, growing, you know, hate speech. It's to be addictive, to, you know, encourage exactly the outcomes that we're seeing now today. So they really pull back through over 100 sources the truth behind Facebook, where it's been, where it's going, and you know what can be done to stop it. Again, this is going to be a news-making book. You can see the announced first print is 500,000. It's going to be huge. So that's An Ugly Truth, and that is coming in June. Next slide, please. I just have, you know, housekeeping stuff. I'm short on time. Join us every Tuesday for Door to Door. Next slide. There's some authors. Next slide. We have a new book buzz 2 hours on February 10th, so do RSVP for that. I'll send you more details. And that's all the time I have. We'll see you at ALA Midwinter. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks for letting me talk.
Hi, I'm Tucker Stone. I'm from Ingram, and I'll be talking about 4 different books from 4 different publishers, all of whom live in the giant Viacom-style hive mind that is Ingram. So starting off, you can go to the next slide. First up is going to be I'm a Wild Seed by Sharon Lee De La Cruz, published by Street Noise. Street Noise is about to celebrate their 1-year anniversary as a publisher, surviving the trial by fire, which is a 2020 pandemic launch for a publisher. They focus on graphic memoirs and graphic nonfiction. I'm a Wild Seed is an inspiring, funny, and challenging collection of autobiographical comics from De La Cruz, a New York-based creator and educator whose work previously appeared in the popular image comic Bitch Planet. The stories in I'm a Wild Seed see Sharon Lee chasing around the experiences of coming into their queerness as an adult woman of color, grappling with those experiences for every bit of humor, wisdom, and pathos she can find. and then pouring them out onto the page with the same kind of homespun clarity you'd see in Drawn and Quarterly's Hot Comb from Ebony Flowers, or the wise-ass honesty of somebody like Linda Berry. It's a powerful graphic memoir coming this February. You can go to the next slide. The next is The Fox and I by Catherine Raven, published by Spiegel and Grau, who are now Spiegel and Grau, just Spiegel and Grau. And after leaving an abusive home behind to become a park ranger and spending many solitary years isolated in Montana, the author Catherine Raven found herself developing a friendship of sorts with a fox who had just started showing up every single day at her house, always around 4:15 p.m., always looking after a single forget-me-not growing near Catherine's home. Their relationship of sorts is built around her daily readings to the fox from a copy of The Little Prince, which saw Catherine Raven eventually re-examining her own decision to exclude friendship from her life. In recent years, books about our relationship to the natural world have grown in popularity, and The Fox and I is a wonderful addition to that category. Like H is for Hawk, it's about a woman's unusual relationship with a wild creature. Like Lab Girl, it's a story about a biologist who has to reconcile her experience with the world with her scientific training. Like Braiding Sweetgrass or Where the Crawdads Sing, it's about living at one with nature. And as for the overstory, Kathy could be one of its characters. The book was such a big deal for Spiegel and Grau that they've actually already redone the logo for their new publisher. So check that out. You'll see what I mean when you see it. And it's coming this June. You can go to the next slide. This is Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty, published by Milkweed Editions. This is one of those people you want to remember because they'll be tormenting you with your own failings for the rest of your life, because he's 16 years old and he already won the Wainwright Prize for UK nature writing for this book, which actually he wrote when he was 15. He's the youngest winner of the Wainwright Prize ever. And this diary is the story of his experience of nature, taking place from his 14th birthday to his 15th birthday, which is also tied into a certain equinox going on there. In his own words, he puts it as, "This book is the outpourings on these pages, expressing my connection to wildlife, try to explain the way I see the world, and to describe how we weather the storms as a family." Dara's hope with his diary was not just to document and explain what the natural world evokes for him and how it makes him feel, but also to expand his readers' understanding of autism and how autism shapes and changes and all the different ways that one can experience the world. It'll arrive in June. You can go to the next slide. Finally, so this is The Son of the House by Chiluchi Onyemeleke Onyebe, published in North America by Dundurn. It already won the Best International Fiction Book Award at the Sharjah International Book Fair last year. It tells the story of the lives of two Nigerian women divided by class and social inequality, and how their lives intersect when they're both kidnapped by a Boko Haram type of organization, held captive and forced to await their fate together. Educated and privileged, Julie is a modern woman living on her own. She's happy to collect the gold jewelry love-struck her Eugene brings her, but she has no intention of becoming his second wife. Nwable is a housemaid since the age of 10, who dreamed of becoming a typist as she endured her employer's endless chores. She's tall, she's beautiful, and in love with a rich man's son. When the kidnapping forces them together, the two women relate their stories of their lives as they await their fate. Pulsing with vitality and intense human drama, Onyabe's debut is set against 4 decades of vibrant Nigeria, celebrating the resilience of women as they navigate and transform what still remains a man's world. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and thank you so much for all the great work you do at libraries. Bye.
Hello, librarians. I'm Erica Melnichuk, and I'm part of the Penguin Random House Library Marketing team. I'm so excited to be here with you today and with my delightful library marketing colleagues. You can always find us at penguinrandomhouselibrarymarketing.com for the latest on our book-related news and resources. Reach out anytime with questions about author events, galley requests, and let us know what you think about what you've read lately, because we'd love to hear it. My next slide is a quick shout out to visit our virtual Midwinter booth. We have such an exciting lineup of keynote authors that we've been working with for Midwinter. And for our booth, we've uploaded a variety of our latest and greatest resources for you. So please check it out. And with my next slide, I want to tell you about a memoir for readers of Bryan Stevenson. author of Just Mercy, who contributed the foreword for My Time Will Come, and Nicholas Kristof's book Tightrope, which devoted an entire chapter to Ian Manuel's story. The United States is the only country in the world that sentences 13 and 14-year-old offenders, mostly youth of color, to life in prison without parole, regardless of the scientifically proven singularities of the developing adolescent brain. In 1991, Ian Manuel, then 14, was sentenced to life without parole for a non-homicide crime. Here is the at once wrenching and inspiring story of how he endured the savagery of the United States prison system and of how his victim, an extraordinary woman, forgave him and bravely advocated for his freedom, which was achieved by a crusade on the part of Bryan Stevenson's Equal Justice initiative. This will be a powerful addition to your social justice collections. With my next slide, I'll tell you about The Heart Remembers, the highly anticipated final book in the international best-selling The Art of Hearing Heartbeats trilogy, a moving story about love's power to transcend distances and heal seemingly irreparable wounds. 12-year-old Ko Bobo lives with his uncle in Burma. An unusually perceptive child, Bobo can read people's emotions in their eyes. This acute sensitivity only makes his unconventional home life more difficult. Everything changes when Bobo discovers the story of his parents' great love, which threatens to break down in the whirlwind of political events, and of his mother's mysterious sickness. Convinced that he can heal her and reunite their family, Bobo decides to set out in search of his parents. A gripping, heartwarming tale that takes the reader from Burma to New York and back. The Heart Remembers is the worthy conclusion to this beloved series. On my next slide, I'm going to prepare you for the hottest summer reading experience. So get ready. Beach read meets sweet bitter in this laugh out loud and ultimately heartwarming debut of a good friend's very bad decision and the summer job that stands to ruin or make her life. Birdie has made a mistake. Everyone imagines running away from their life at some point, but Birdie has actually done it. And the life she's run into is her best friend, Heather's. The only problem is she hasn't told Heather. The summer job at the Highland Scottish Hotel that her world-class wine expert friend ditched turns out to be a lot more than Birdie bargained for. Can she survive a summer pretending to be her best friend? And can Birdie stop herself from falling for the first man she's ever actually liked, but who thinks she's someone else? One good friend's very bad decision is at the heart of this laugh out loud love story, an unexpected tale of a woman finally finding herself in the strangest of places. My next title is from the New York Times bestselling author of Daisy Jones and the Six, and takes readers right to the heart of unforgettable 1980s Malibu in a sun-drenched, wave-washed atmosphere you won't want to leave. 4 famous siblings throw an epic party to celebrate the end of the summer, but over the course of 24 hours, their lives will forever change. It's the day of talented surfer and supermodel Nina Riva's annual end of summer party, and anticipation is at a fever pitch. Everyone wants to be around the famous Riva family, Nina to be sure, but also her 2 gorgeous brothers and her adorable baby sister. Together, the siblings are a source of constant fascination in Malibu and the world over, especially as the offspring of the legendary singer Mick Riva. By midnight, the party will be completely out of control. By morning, the Riva mansion will have gone up in flames. But before that first spark in the early hours before dawn, the alcohol will flow, the music will play, and the loves and secrets that shaped this family's generations will all come rising to the surface. With my next slide, I have an original audio collection of 3 amazing radio dramas from the 40s and 50s, sure to make take your patrons down memory lane, while also introducing younger mystery fans to something that they haven't yet experienced themselves. With the ever-growing popularity of audiobooks and the art of audio, this is the perfect way to introduce listeners to where it all began, with radio drama. And onto my final slide for today. Thank you for listening. Please check out today's titles using the teeny tiny URL listed here, and I'll be on the lookout for your e-galley requests. Happy reading, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, Hi, everybody. It is so nice to be with you today, I'm Alexa Waco. I'm from Soho Press, and I'm going to be talking about some of our most exciting literary titles, crime titles, and teen titles. So first up, if we can jump to my first slide, is Sleep Well, My Lady, love that cover, by Quirk Books. This is the follow-up to Gem of a Series debut, in the words of the Washington Post, The Missing American. It's Quirk Books' first in series featuring Emma John, a young savvy PI with heart of gold who solves cases in Accra, Ghana's police force won't touch. The Missing American, the first in series, was selected as a best book of 2020 by NPR, the Washington Post, Book Page, and more. And we think more is in store, the same is in store rather, for Sleep Well, My Lady, the second in series. In this installment, we delve into the lives of Accra's rich and powerful in the Beverly Hills of Accra to investigate the high-profile murder of a Ghanaian fashion icon and social media celebrity, Lady Araba. A few days before a major runway show, Araba is found murdered at home. Her driver is arrested after a hasty investigation by the police, but Araba's favorite aunt has her own theory that Augustus Caesar, the controversial and hard-hitting talk show host with whom Lady Araba was having an affair, was the real killer. Emma John embarks on her first undercover mission to find the truth. And Quirk Books is a writer to watch if you aren't watching him already. We expect this series to only skyrocket from here. And if you like armchair mysteries and well-crafted supporting cast, I would definitely suggest Sleep Well, My Lady. And we can jump to the next slide. Yes, I am so excited to present this one, Slough House by Mick Herron. There's so much to say about British writer Mick Herron that it's hard to know where to start, but the very brief headline is, and it's a bold statement, but true, is he is the Le Carré of the next generation. He is without a doubt one of, if not the greatest spy writer working today. Come February and beyond, you are going to see Slough House pop up in books media everywhere you look. This is the seventh in series that follows a group of disgraced MI5 spies headed by the irascible Jackson Lemn, who will do anything to get back into the game. This book is not, the series rather, it's not only smart and honestly hilarious, it is the most prescient espionage series being written today, with Mick having intuited the rise of the alt-right and even Brexit. If the books were not so smartly funny and filled with memorable characters, they would almost be unbearably sobering for how just on point they are. Instead, they're a guiltless anecdote for our times, somehow providing mirthful respite and politically engaged reading at the same time. And last but not least, this is very important to me personally, the series is currently being adapted for Apple TV, starring Gary Oldman as Jackson Lemn. Okay, next slide. Okay, on to a literary title from Soho Press. This one is from visionary author and filmmaker Sandy Tan, who did the documentary Shirkers, which if you've seen it is just incredible. And if not, I would recommend it. And also is directing the upcoming adaptation of Elif Batuman's The Idiot. This is a polyphonic literary portrait of a Los Angeles suburb and really kind of indescribable as the rest of Sandy's work, but I'll do my best. This centers a neighborhood of immigrants, seekers, lovers, and lurkers. In Lurkers, Sandy turns her eye to the seemingly placid foothill community of Altadena, where neighbors keep their wary distance, and in doing so set themselves on a collision course with one another. These interlocking narratives feature Korean American sisters Mira and Rosemary, who are waging war after their mother announces they are returning to Korea, Kate, the adopted Vietnamese daughter of Mary Sue, her white mother, and Raymond, an aging gay horror novelist who avoids his neighbors at all costs until he absolutely can't. These are intimate, sometimes salacious, interlocking narratives to create a whole polyphonic whole. Reading Lurkers is like reading a stranger's diary, which I personally like a whole lot. The word thrilling certainly fits. In fact, as tensions on Santa Claus Lane, which is the lane where they live, hit a fever pitch, you're not sure whether all the characters are going to make it out alive. Lastly, I just want to end on the praise of Crazy Rich Asians author Kevin Kwan, who sums it up well. Every page of this wildly original book is a surprise and a delight. Okay, next slide. And the last book that I'll talk about. Great, awesome, back to crime, Dead of Winter. For those of you not already familiar with Stephen Mac Jones' Hammett and Nero award-winning in Detroit set August Snow series, there's never been a better time to discover crime fiction's mightiest hero, biracial ex-cop August Snow. After winning a large corruption suit from the Detroit police, August now fights for justice on his own terms and on behalf of Mexican Town, the underprotected community and vulnerable community where he grew up. He takes on villains from all stratospheres of power. Earlier in the series, this means ICE agents and a wealthy financial magnate. In Dead of Winter, the third in the series, he takes on a shadowy Detroit real estate billionaire and a ruthless fixer when a successful Mexican Town family business lands in their crosshairs. That's about it for me. Really quickly, Snow is tough, smart, and captivating. He'll remind readers of Lee Child's famous one-man army, Jack Reacher, and that is another bold claim, but I stick by it. And this one is for fans of socially minded crime fiction. August Snow is your man. And yes, I won't talk about Between the Bliss and Me, but just a shout out. And then I can, I'll drop Edelweiss links in the chat, but if you ever want a galley, please reach out. There's my contact information, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Hello, librarians. My name is Chris Vicari from Sterling. Thanks for all you do. And now on to the books. Kevin Zraly's Windows on the World Complete Wine Course. A reminder about our new revised edition, because it's still the best book for wine beginners who just want to learn how to walk around a wine store and not be intimidated. It includes new chapters on Prosecco and Rosé, plus Kevin's 50-year perspective on how wine and food culture has changed. Next slide, please. Now in spring 2021, Conversations with a Killer, Ed Kemper. This is the third in our Conversations with a Killer series. We do mean killer. Ed Kemper murdered 10 people, including college students and family members. He was a case study by authors for characters in The Silence of the Lambs and American Psycho. Still alive in a California facility, Kemper still fascinates true crime readers, built stronger through the Netflix show Mindhunter. While not a household name like Manson and Bundy, Ed Kemper is still one for your true crime readers who want to know what make these terrible people tick. And I say that as a true crime reader myself. Next slide is a reminder of the other two in our Conversations with a Killer series, those being Charles Manson and Ted Bundy. Next slide, continuing with true crime serial killers of the 80s. If you're a true crime reader, the 80s is like your Super Bowl. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Golden State Killer, and many others. This fifth book in the Profiles in Crime series uncovers the facts about their crimes, along with advances in forensics that thankfully led to their capture. In here, you can read all about Richard Ramirez, the subject of Netflix's brand new Night Stalker series. Next slide is the Profiles in Crime backlist, including the just released Killer Cults. Now, after all that true crime reading, you might need to take the edge off, which leads me to two new titles. Homegrown Cannabis. The US marijuana industry is worth billions of dollars and not slowing down, and cultivating cannabis at home allows you to decide how it's grown. Herbalist and grower Alexis Burnett will show you how to nurture plants from seed to harvest. Also how to maintain the right growing conditions and provide key nutrients. And our next slide, Cannabis for Health. Different strains work for different people in different ways. The cannabis plant is not one size fits all. Relying on testimonials by users and physicians to guide people, Cannabis for Health discusses those various types and potencies, their healing benefits, and how they address 30 key conditions. Next slide is 1001 tarot spreads. Tarot is a hot subject, and a couple of reasons why we think. One is part of the wider global trend toward mindfulness. People think it's about predicting the future, but it's really about the present, and it can be empowering. Second, social media has made it more accessible. Instagram features beautifully shot tarot spreads all day long, and local tarot readers, especially in 2020, have grown their platforms, sharing their readings. Some on YouTube have over 200,000 subscribers. This 544-page guide by Cassandra Eason, a master reader herself, can be the one source book for different ways to draw and place cards that will serve as a tool for self-discovery while giving clues about the future, context for the present, and insight into the past. Next slide, please. The Alternative Flour Cookbook. For all the bread bakers out there, time to consider alternative flours as substitutes for regular wheat flour. Chickpea, buckwheat, banana, even almond, all have many advantages with their complex flavors and host of nutrients. But it's not just bread. Oh no, you'll find it easy to create plant-based pastas, donuts, cakes, and so much yummy more in 100 simple recipes. This is the third title in our plant-based kitchen series, which also includes on the next slide the oat milk cookbook and the vegan meat cookbook. We're making life more delicious than ever. Next slide is the Instant Pot Kosher Cookbook by Paula Scheuer. Many traditional Jewish dishes are soups and stews, and families have relied on slow cookers to achieve that soft, flavor-filled stew of their ancestors, but they lamented the time required. Lament no more. This book includes a robust array of traditional and contemporary kosher recipes with vastly shorter cooking times without compromising flavor or texture. The next slide is 60 quick knit blanket squares. If you are knitting through the pandemic to reduce stress, then Sixth and Spring is the publisher for you. And if you're a regular knitter, You may have seen that the blanket squares are taking over. It's because blanket squares can be the simplest of projects. And these 60 squares range in skill level and technique. And with every design worked in Cascade Yarns, 220 superwash merino, 100 color campaigns, these blankets are soft, luscious, easy care, and affordable. And lastly, on my next slide, Bob Dylan, a lavishly illustrated, thoughtfully abridged edition of a classic book on Mr. Dylan, published to coincide with his 80th birthday in 2021, a must read for all Dylan aficionados. Late last year, Dylan sold his entire songwriting catalog, said to be worth more than $300 million. Those are the books, and that's the way it is today. My last slide has my and my nice colleague Andrea's contact information. Please reach out for all your Sterling book needs, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Croce, and I'm a recent addition to the Simon & Schuster Education and Library team. Thank you so much for being here this morning or afternoon. I'm on the West Coast, sorry. I am thrilled to introduce some upcoming titles. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels at SSEdLib. And if you want even more book recommendations, stop by the book drop. All right, first up, we have Life After Death by Sister Soldier. 20 years ago, Sister Soldier's debut novel, The Coldest Winter Ever, became a best-selling cultural phenomenon. Fans quickly became obsessed with Winter Santiago, the sexy, street-smart protagonist who captivated her lovers, friends, enemies, and readers alike. Sister Soldier's fans have clamored for answers about Winter, and after 2 decades, she's delivering the goods. This page-turning sequel finds Winter, and spoilers if you haven't read The Coldest Winter Ever, at the end of her jail sentence, ready to reclaim the spotlight and her throne. Filled with Sister Soldier's trademark passion, danger, temptation, and adventure, this is a sequel worth the wait. Next, we have The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. Laura Dave also wrote 800 Grapes, if her name looks familiar. Before Owen Michaels disappeared, he left a note to his wife, Hannah, protect her. Hannah is shocked and confused about a lot of things regarding her husband's sudden disappearance, but the meaning of the note is clear to her. Protect Owen's teenage daughter and Hannah's stepdaughter, Bailey, who happens to hate Hannah, of course. Soon, 2 things become increasingly clear. 1, that Owen wasn't who he said he was, what with the US Marshals and FBI agents converging upon their home, and 2, that Bailey might hold the key to figuring out who Owen was and why he disappeared. Teaming up, the 2 set out to discover the truth together. As my colleague Amy said about this book, it grabs your attention and holds on tight, taking you across the country and back in a thrilling puzzle. And this is one puzzle you won't want to miss. All right, next, this is Swimming Back to Trout River by Linda Ray Fang, a poignant novel that Garth Greenwell called one of the most beautiful debuts I've read in years. It follows the journey of one family against the backdrop of China's Cultural Revolution and how the individual threads of their past influence the trajectory of their uncertain futures. 10-year-old Junie lives in a small Chinese village, awaiting the fulfillment of her father Momo's promise to bring her to America, where he and Cassia, June's mother, live before her 12th birthday. While Junie resists leaving her idyllic life with her grandparents, she doesn't know that her reunion with her parents could be the key to saving their family. Momo and Cassie are secretly estranged, kept separate by the private tragedies and secrets they hold close. This lyrical debut beautifully weaves together the stories of these characters while depicting their heartbreak and resilience, tenderly revealing the hope, compromises, and abiding ingenuity that make up the lives of immigrants. Lastly, we have The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris, a novel that's already taking the book world by storm and one of my favorites of the year. Publishing assistant Nella Rogers loves her job, but she's tired of being the only Black employee at Wagner Books. When Hazel starts working there, Nella is thrilled. Finally, someone she can compare hair care routines with, someone she can complain about workplace racial microaggressions with, and someone who, by her mere presence, makes it so that Nella is no longer the only Black girl at Wagner. But Hazel quickly rises above Nella, becoming the office favorite, and things go from bad to worse when sinister notes appear on Nella's desk saying, "Leave Wagner now." Who is leaving these notes and why? Nella soon realizes that what's at play here isn't just petty workplace drama, but instead something far more sinister. Shining an unflinching light on the various facets of workplace racism, this crackling debut draws you in at the first page and keeps you firmly in its grasp, moving you as swiftly and thrillingly as any roller coaster, each turn building to the final gasping twist. All right, next. Before I let you go, I want to give a shout out to our Book Club Favorites program. If you or your colleagues are working on programming for your patrons and want authors involved in your book club discussions, let us know. Email us at bookclubfavorites@simonandschuster.com for details. And lastly, I mentioned this at the beginning of my presentation, but if you want more recommendations, check out the Book Drop. This website is dedicated to being a resource for you. It's filled with a seasonal brochure, filled with our department's recommendations, links to our full digital catalog, book trailers, and more. Have questions, or is there something you want to see more of? We'd love to hear from you. Email us at education.library@simonandschuster.com. And don't worry, if you didn't get those, I'm going to put all of those things in the chat in case you didn't write them down, but that's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Schultz, Marketing Specialist for Sourcebooks. Greetings from Chicago. I'm thrilled to be here today to fill you in on some of our best upcoming adult titles. We hope you'll download our galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss to read these new titles and visit our website to sign up for one of our newsletters. Next slide. We've created an Edelweiss catalog for you with today's titles and others, and I've dropped that link into the chat. I'll drop it in at the end as well. Next slide. Many of our authors are happy to join your book clubs from around the world, so please let us know if you'd like to schedule a visit. Next. And please download a copy of our book club picks guide on our website. Next slide. Now on to Sourcebooks landmark fiction titles, starting with, next slide, The Girls in the Stilt House. Murder breaks through the racial divide that separates two teenage girls, forging an unlikely friendship in this Southern debut by Kelly Mustaine. Ada promised herself she would never go back to the Trace, her life there unbearable. But now, after briefly running away, she finds herself with nowhere to go but back home. And there will be a price to pay with her harsh father. Matilda, daughter of a sharecropper, is from the other side of the Trace. Tired of the whims and demands of some particularly callous locals, she forms a plan to go north. As the two girls are drawn deeper into a dangerous world of bootleggers and corruption, they must come to terms with the complexities of their tenuous bond and a hidden past that links them in ways that could cost them their lives. Next slide. And now I'd like to introduce you to a few of our nonfiction titles. Next slide. I Am the Rage is a poetry collection that explores racial injustice from the raw, unfiltered viewpoint of a Black woman in America. Dr. Martina McGowan's poetry provides insights that no think piece on racism can, and challenges readers to feel, reflect, and face what it means to be a Black American. This entire collection was created during 2020 after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. Next. For the readers of Hidden Figures and Something Wonderful, Footnotes is the story of New York in the Roaring '20s and the first Broadway show with an all-Black cast and creative team to achieve success. 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Broadway smash Shuffle Along. Amidst a culture actively whitewashing, controlling, and trying to prevent their stories from being told, these artists changed the course of American entertainment. This trailblazing group sowed the seeds of the Harlem jazz scene and paved the way for people of color on stage and screen, ultimately leading to productions such as West Side Story, Black Panther, and of course, Hamilton. Writer Cassine Gaines has unprecedented access to the families of the cast and crew and obtained personal photographs and behind the scenes information. Next slide. Kate Moore is back. The New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of The Radium Girls has crafted the woman they could not silence. 1860, as the clash between the states rolls slowly to a boil, Elizabeth Packard, housewife and mother of 6, is facing her own battle. The enemy sits across the breakfast table. Threatened by Elizabeth's intellect, independence, and outspokenness, her husband of 21 years is plotting against her. One summer morning, he has her committed to an insane asylum. The conditions are horrific inside the Illinois State Hospital, but most disturbing is that Elizabeth is not the only sane woman confined to the institution. There are many rational women on her ward who tell the same story. They've been committed not because they need medical treatment, but to keep them in line. Elizabeth is about to discover that the merit of losing everything is that you then have nothing to lose. Next slide. We'll move on to our mystery imprint, Poison Pen Press. Next, Of One Blood is a groundbreaking first novel by an African-American author to both feature African-American characters and takes place in Africa. First serialized in Colored American Magazine in 1902, Pauline Hopkins's book includes elements of a ghost story, a love story, and a quest novel. Our Poison Pen edition is presented by the Horror Writers Association and includes notes, biographical information about the author, discussion questions, and suggested further reading. Next. And finally, from our Casa Romance line, next slide, The Girl with the Stars in Her Eyes. Growing up, Antonia Bennett's guitar was her only companion until she met Sebastian. Seb was a little older, a lot wiser, and he became Tony's way out, promising they'd escape their small town together. Then Seb turned 18 and split without looking back. Now Tony B is all grown up and making a name for herself. When a friend suggests she try out for the hottest new band, she decides to take a chance, not realizing this opportunity will bring her face to face with the man who broke her heart and nearly stole her dreams. Author Zio Axelrod is a singer-songwriter and has written a new song to accompany this book. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Next slide, sorry. Feel free to email me with further information, and we hope to see you all at ALA Midwinter this week. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ian Fontenot and I'm with Blackstone Publishing, and I am happy to conclude this book bust session. I will be highlighting some of our upcoming new releases. It will be a mix of audio only and all formats. I will start with Cosmic Queries. It's an audio only. This is by Neil deGrasse Tyson with James Trefil. It's releasing March 2nd. This book comes out of the widely popular Star Talk series, radio, TV, and podcast. You might be familiar with it. And it's expanding here on the deepest questions asked to Neil. So what are we made of? Are we alone in the universe? How will it all end? So you will find all the answers in this audio. Next slide, please. The next one, it will be an old format, is Killer Triggers by true crime star Joe Kenda. You might be familiar with the Discovery Star or with his TV show Homicide Hunters or his most recent show American Detective. In Killer Triggers, Joe Kenda reflects on past homicide cases and looks into the triggers of what led to the crime. So discovering even the most placid and peaceful of us have a potential for violence. So Joe elucidates just how once our triggers is pulled, consequences become immaterial. So ID Book Club picked it for the month of March as being its book club pick. And that's for March 9th. Next, Animals. So Animals is a fiction debut by screenwriter Will Staples, and that's for March 30th. And Welcome to the End of the Wild. So Animals is set in the world of global animal trafficking and follows converging storylines into the dark maze of corruption and organized crime. And through the journey of the main characters, the novel explores the factors driving the exploitation and ruin of the natural world. You can see there's a great quote from Jane Goodall. And then Warner Bros. Also announced that a feature film version is in development with Leonardo DiCaprio, and then it will be starring Tom Hardy and Tobey Maguire. So we'll hear a lot about this book in the next few months. Next one, we have Hummingbird Salamander. That's going to be an audio only by Jeff Vandermeer for April 6th. Jeff Vandermeer doesn't need much of an introduction, is the author of Annihilations. This time he comes with a brilliant speculative thriller of dark conspiracy and dangerous species and the possible end of all things. So it's really the gripping eco thriller that pulls listeners into a world of danger, mystery, and obsession. So this is really Jeff Vandermeer, this brilliant cinematic best, really wrapping profound questions about climate change, identity, and the world we live in into a tightly plotted thriller full of unexpected twists and elaborate conspiracy. So that's for early April. Next. Then we have one of my little favorite spring book, also an audio only, is The Elephant of Belfast. It's by S. Kirk Walsh. It's also a debut historical fiction, and it's inspired by true events, this vivid and moving story of a young woman zookeeper and the elephant she's compelled to protect through the German Blitz of Belfast during World War II. It speaks to not only the tragedy of the times, but also to the ongoing sectarian tensions that still exist in Northern Ireland today. And it's perfect for readers of historical and literary fiction alike. And last week, Kirkus Review picked it as one of the 10 fiction books to look for this year. So that's for April. Next one, Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. You may remember this book from the 1970s. This is also going to be an audio only for us. This was the coming of age autobiographical account of Rita Mae Brown's youth and emergence as a lesbian author. And it was reissued in print in 2015, but really is as resonant and relevant today as it ever was. It's never been done on audio, and we'll be bringing it early May. So next. Then we have an All Rights for Us, the Reincarnationist Papers by D. Eric Makrens. It's fiction, and it's a book that sprang from the imaginative premise that of an existence of a secret society called Cognomina, and whose members have the ability to remember everything from their past lives. So the release will tie in with an upcoming movie later this year that will star Mark Wahlberg. The movie will be called Infinite. That's also for May 4th. Next. And then the last title that I wanted to highlight, it is an audio only, The Dig by John Preston. Is it backlist? It's available now, but it's the Netflix tie-in. It will be premiering on Netflix on January 9th, and I just wanted to highlight it here to let you know that it was available on audio. The Netflix series will star Ralph Fiennes and Carey Mulligan. And here's my contact information for any questions that you might have. Thank you so very much for your attention today.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. Again, this is the link that will take you to all of the slides that you saw today. So all of the contact information, all the links to Edelweiss catalogs, everything is at this link. It is case sensitive, so please be aware of that. But tomorrow, I will be sending an email around to everybody who registered for this event, and you will get the link to the YouTube video so you can watch this again if you want and see our faces, and I will include this link as well. So you don't have to worry about anything. You'll get all that information in an email tomorrow. Thank you once again for being here. We really appreciate it. We can't do what we do without you. We love and miss you all, and we hope you are doing well. Thank you so much.